Frugal Force. Once again, this is Captain Frugal reporting for duty. This is another one of my road rage series. And if you're not as familiar with these are pretty much I have a long commute, and I use some of the time on my drive time to chat into my phone. I set my phone up so I'm safe and hands-free, and I just speak off the cuff based on something that's, made me think. And so they're really off the cuff. They're not planned. They're not scripted or anything. And it's just me rambling on. Well, anyway, recently, the other day, there was a person on Twitter. I'm going to show this tweet right up here on the screen so you'll see it, because I'm going to butcher the name otherwise. Zaelkrie, if I recall. I'm not reading it off the phone, so bear with me on there. Anyway, he asked, what do you think? To me and several other people. He said about Marvel being abusive and using people while giving each side just enough to keep them hanging around so they can use them for political and financial gain. Okay? So what he's saying, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, and I hope I'm not, what I think his intent here is saying that, they're intentionally fueling the fire, giving enough to each side to try to keep people interested and maybe even play both sides. I don't know, just to get the financial gain. Okay. And I think this is something to address. But before that, I don't think that's exactly the case of what's going on. And I'll explain why. First of all, a corporation is a legal entity. It's not a real person, but a corporation is spawned off to be taxed as a separate person from actual people. Okay? That's just the basics. Now, therefore, a corporation doesn't technically have a personal view or an agenda. A corporation has stockholders, okay, if it's a publicly traded corporation. A private can, because it's usually by a smaller group of people with similar interests. But this is a public corporation, which means it's widely held, which means there's many people that own it technically. And that's because of stocks. You own stock, you own the corporation. Okay, you own a piece of it. The more pieces you own, the more control you have. So what happens is the people with the most of that, which also, by the way, it's owned by Disney. People say yes, and Disney is also public, so therefore goes under the same umbrella. Okay, keep that in mind. So we have stockholders, okay, and these people own it. Now, what they have then is what we call a board of directors. These board of directors tend to usually have a lot of stock themselves in the company, or they're highly regarded professionals that might not even be necessarily in the same industry, but they're good at what they do. And their job is to make sure that the company is meeting its fiduciary responsibilities to its shareholders, in other words, its owners. And that fiduciary responsibility is to earn them a profit. Okay? That's the goal. Now, before anyone wants to villainize it in capitalism and all that, let's think about this. Anytime you don't use your money for instant gratification, like, hey, I want to buy this comic book now, you're putting it away for later. And if you're putting it into a company, there's risk involved. And anytime you put your money somewhere that it can be lost, there's risk. And so there's the risk versus reward premium. You have the minimum amount of risk is going to reach you the minimum amount of reward. The more risk you're willing to take, it's for bigger potential rewards. And each company reward factor is based on a plethora of different things, ultimately leading in just to perception. Because if everyone's perception was the same, no one would buy or sell a stock. Okay? We would all assume everything's good and everyone would want it, and nobody would sell it then, or everyone would think it's bad and nobody would buy it because nobody would want to buy it. So the perception of people is different. So nonetheless, these people's job is to make sure they're meeting the fiduciary needs of the shareholders and earning a return on investment that's expected and accepted. And if that isn't met, that money is going to be given elsewhere. And they're going to sell the stock, and if too many people shift and do that, a lot of people sell it off, it creates a disconnect with the stock. People are thinking it's not being successful, perception goes down, and there's many other factors that rely on this and everything too. Some are completely speculative and some completely miss the mark, so causing this to go up and down. So ultimately their job is to make sure people are earning a return on their investment. Therefore they put in a CEO. The CEO's job is to make sure that he's doing the best job he can with that organization to meet the fiduciary expectations that the board has put in place. So what am I getting at? How's that good with comics? I know I just rattled and probably bored a lot of people, and I apologize for that. It's fascinating to me though. So what happens is a CEO doesn't just get replaced for no reason. A CEO gets replaced because sales are down, revenue's down, the organizational culture needs help, and there's the fundamental issue. CB was put in probably for a plethora of reasons. Sales are down, and probably the culture is a big part of it. You have to look at this. And this is a tough pill to swallow, especially for anybody in a leadership position, okay? And if I offend you, I wasn't talking to you, okay? A leadership position, think about this. And this could go in anywhere, not just business. The sooner you realize this, the better off you are. As a leader, everything is your fault, okay? Everything. If you think you can prove me wrong on that one, feel free in the comments. Tell me something, and most likely, I've never been proven wrong yet, I can show you a link to where it was your fault. So here's an example. Well, that employee is spouting that off. That wasn't the CEO. That wasn't his fault. Okay, well, who hired that employee? The company did, right? Who's in charge of running that company and making sure it's in the right direction, right? He might have had or she might have had a hand in hiring the person that hired that person. Ultimately, he's a leader, and you don't even have to have a powerful position in a company to be a leader. There's such a thing as implied power. Think about this. Have you ever been at a job, or you know somebody at a job that everybody goes to for help or to ask questions, even though they're not the leader? They have what's called implied power. So that means people look up to them. Now, this implied power can be used positively or negatively. If you've ever worked at a company that was very toxic and everybody hated their job and was always mad, there was probably a leader or several leaders that had implied power that were providing a negative atmosphere. Okay, now just bear with me here. Okay, in a positive company, you'll usually see several leaders that are bringing a positive atmosphere to the company. Positivity is key. Keeping the right attitude. Organizational culture is very important for the end result. It hits the customer hardest because a customer will know it. So for example, you go to, who cares, or whatever it is, a fast food joint, and the person at the counter is like, yeah, what do you want? Okay, you probably have some bad atmosphere there, or an employee with a bad attitude, or a current issue going at hand. They're always one moment away from a bad issue, okay? And we need to change that. You have to help morale and those things. Now, once again, you're going, how does that impact us? What does this have to do with it? Well, here's exactly what happened. You have an SJW, had an SJW in power. He allowed that to influence decisions and things and who is brought into the company. Tends to be people that hire people that they see themselves in. They say over 60% of hires are people that say, oh, this person could be a good fit because they're like me. So if you get people in power that are SJWs with a particular political view or ideology, they tend to hire others with that mentality. Now, not even intentionally always. This can be a non-intentional thing, okay? But what happened is they created a new culture. So once they start hiring a particular people with a particular ideology and groupthink, more of those came to be. And more. And then what do? You see it in the product because that's the way they think. That's their ideology. They don't mind letting that go. And since there's now a group of them with all the same groupthink of that, it's almost now a backpatting round table where everyone's always, hey, look what I put in the book. And they have that mentality. So it never really was intended for Marvel or any company to say, hey, we're going to have necessarily this agenda, not as a publicly traded company. But what happened is they put pieces in that allowed that to happen, and they allowed that to fester and grow. So then when the head gets fired, which has happened, it's going to cause a shakeup. CB has a very big job. One of the hardest jobs in a company is to change culture. You can't just walk in and make that change overnight. Even if you are the head of a company, you have to build your power position, your power base. Think about this. Have you ever had a new boss, a new head honcho, or somebody comes in, he or she does, and they're going to make a bunch of changes because they know what's best? And how did that work out? Usually it's abysmal failure and it tanks. It's because they come in and they fail to build a power base. To build a power base, you have to go in. You have to talk to people. You have to listen to them. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You have to listen to them. You have to gain their trust. And then when you gain their trust, you can start making more moves. You can start making changes, because if you make a change and the employees don't agree with you, they will find a way to shut you down. Think about anywhere you've ever worked. If the boss made a change of a policy and a certain person in a power position, implied power, disagrees, they're going to do everything to shame that, make it wrong, and it's going to fail. Production will go down. They will find a way or a loophole to make that idea fail because they're averse to it. Even, because they maybe don't like change. Who knows what the reason is? So CB has to build the power position, a power base, to start getting people to buy in. And then as he makes changes, and if there's positivity and positivity such as in sales and things, based on those changes, they're going to slowly continue to build. So he has to completely convert the corporate culture, change the attitude within the corporation, which once again is a long, hard process. He has a big job. I don't know if he's going to succeed at it. I hope he does. So that's my point there. The company has an identity, sure, but that identity isn't necessarily a focused identity that was created when it's a publicly traded company. It's something that's actually molded and changed over time. What Marvel probably needs is a good mission statement and a good vision statement, something to help keep them on track of what they're good at and how to stay on there. And that could be, it could take some time to write, like focusing on making the most entertaining, best comics that appeal to a large, diverse group, whatever. With that, instead what they've allowed themselves to do is become a political and ideology mouthpiece, which is actually turned away more of their customers, as they call them, fanboys or whatever, and denounce them and talk bad to them. So once again, that's a corporate change. They need to get everybody on the same page, which is once again leadership's job. And it's easier said than done. He's going to have to learn to motivate. He's going to have to create targets and goals and get the employees to step in line and buy into it. Sometimes that's removing a key piece, setting a note there. Sometimes you do have to drop the hammer and say, okay, guys, this is what's going to happen. You've seen it, and make an example. But it's going to take time. All right, that's a long answer. I know this has been a long one, but that's my view on the subject. I hope I didn't bore you to death. I probably did, because you're like, oh, crap, this is a business class. Okay? But ultimately, that's what it is. Culture takes a long time. Everything is the boss's fault. Don't forget that. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think I'm off the mark? Do you think there was the board of directors all got together and said, hey, let's have this political ideology, which is possible, technically, okay? If they're not considering the fiduciary responsibility to the stockholders. Am I wrong or am I right? Did I maybe give you a new glimpse of insight? Made you think about something in a way you didn't think about before? Or you just think I'm crazy and I ought to shut up? All right. So if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, there's my GPS telling me don't miss my exit. Also, spread these videos to others if you want to help me out. And if you want to help Little Frugal and I out financially, you can go down to the info bar below. You will see that we have a Patreon, so you can help us there by as little as $1 a month, and we greatly appreciate it. It helps fund these things and keep us going. All right, until next time, keep it frugal.